Oh. Setting up our meeting for live YouTube. See how this goes.
Mike, what shift you on again? I know we talked about it.
B for booze.
Gotcha. Tomorrow.
That's it.
All right, we're up.
Pags, your hair looks amazing.
I worked pretty hard on it today. Found some product. Listen, even if you're not leaving the house, you still, or in my case, the hotel, you still want to look good.
Oh yeah, man, without a doubt. You never know. You never know.
Cal, where are you right now? The hotel.
That would be East 47th Street, just off of 3rd Avenue. It's a very nice establishment. Has a heated bathroom floor. Does it get any better? Yeah.
Ooh.
I don't know if I can take that with me when I leave, but I'm going to try.
All right, we are up. We already got some people jumping in. So just real quick on the comments, I just want to make sure the sound's okay for everybody listening on YouTube Live, and then we're gonna get rolling here, man. What's on Jeremy's lip? That's my that's my quarantine mustache, is what that is. All right, let me do this. I just got to reposition some stuff. Get rolling.
Gareth tuning in from Texas. Nice.
Yeah, so we got people all over. Sound is good, so we're going to get rolling, man. So here we are. This is the Fire Radio live stream on YouTube. And I just want to, we lost Mick again. I just want to thank you guys for hopping in. And, as more people are signing on, I am absolutely stoked to do this tonight. The fun thing about the quarantine, right, outside of everybody working in the firehouses or the volunteers that are following or whatever, right, other than going to, dealing with all that, the quarantine forced a lot of us to try different things or do different things. I mean, the fact that, the four of you guys are social media driven content pages that look after training and bettering the job, we've all had to find ways to communicate our message even more so now than ever. We can't get out to conferences. We can't go do live training in the field. Many of you guys are instructors and it's just impossible to do. So we have to find different ways. And that's what I'm excited about, because this whole Zoom and now, streaming live on the different channels and putting out different types of content, it's a home run. It's forced us to do that, and I love it. So tonight is no exception to the rule, man. This is a group of hard hitters. I've worked with each and every one of you guys in different ways, whether on our podcast or different conferences or, group conferences, things like that. So it's just exciting to have you guys here. I know a lot about all four of you, but some of the followers might not. So I really just, if you guys each take like 2 minutes and just give a little background on yourself and maybe about your Instagram page that you guys do run, because I know that a lot of the people here tonight are here because of the positive influence that you guys are putting out. So Pags, you're the first one in my view here. So would you mind hopping in and just a quick background about either yourself or your page?
Sure. I figured somebody's got to break the ice. How you doing, Matt?
You're the guy.
Boogie Down Truck Work. Work for a small 4-letter department that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. Started the page because I didn't have enough money to start a spite store. So I started a spite page and it kind of blew up. And here we are, pushing out some great original content. I think that's the biggest thing about it. And I've got to meet a lot of great people, many of which are actually with us tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Chris, how about the hook and the can, bro? You guys been around. You guys are crushing it. Numbers fantastic. You got a great following. You're putting out good stuff. Give me a little background.
One of my friends actually started the page back in the day on Facebook. He had about 500 followers. He fell out of love with the fire service, gave it to me. And I was always the kid that nobody believed in. And I always felt like the younger generation could always come up. And pretty much this was like a big, listen, anybody can do it. Why not try it? And that's all it is, man. It's about fun and learning.
Yeah, that's fantastic, bro. Thank you. How about yourself, man?
Is that me?
Nick or Nick?
Nick, sorry.
Whichever one.
No, Nick.
All right.
Go ahead, Nick.
My name's Nick Esposito. I work for the city of Bridgeport, which is in Connecticut. It's about a 300-person fire department. My page is Truck Tactics, and it came from, I just started posting random stuff on my own personal page about things that I was doing at work. And then people actually liked it and started asking a lot of questions. And so the crew that I had a very senior operator, and then I had two very young firemen, and it was just fun watching those guys learn, and also fun watching the senior man share. And so I just kind of randomly fell into it, posting that stuff up. People liked it, so the next one came, and then the next post, and that's kind of how I ended up here, I guess.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you, Nick. And Mick, top floor, brother. Your articulate posts on Instagram. I love it, pal.
Thank you, Jeremy. So I've always kept a notebook throughout my career, from the early days, even when I was a young kid, all the way up to the present day. So with that notebook, I was always just jotting down ideas, different fires I went through, different things that happened. And through National Fire Radio and these other platforms, I realized there's a whole subculture of society within the fire service, and it's right here. This is it. So why not put it into an Instagram page? And I slowly did it. I hid it from all my friends and coworkers, and now I'm out there with my face doing this. And unfortunately, that's an evil in this job, but here we are. We're all doing it, and we're doing it together. So it's a good thing. So thank you, Jeremy, for having us on and now getting out there doing this.
Oh, this is fantastic, man. It doesn't get much better than this. This is why we do it, a little background, Rob, too. Hop in on this, bro. But, the reason why we started this thing over 2 years ago was to do exactly this. If we can afford the opportunity to press forward and get the good of the job out there, whether through training, whether through, the brotherhood, the culture, and the tradition, and tell those stories. Not everyone has the ability to be in a good firehouse. Not everybody's in an A company. And a lot of people struggle, and we hear that struggle. Rob, maybe you want to touch on that, bro.
I just want to start out with when Jeremy approached me about working on this, and he said, he wanted to give back to the fire service and how he got so much out of the fire service. And I really related to that. And he kind of pitched the idea, and I was like, yeah, man, I don't really have much going on this year, which is a lie. Thankfully, my wife's upstairs right now, but we're getting married, and it's been an amazing ride so far, especially getting the feedback from everybody and the different people that we've kind of made an influence on, and those who are out on that island who are all by themselves trying to make themselves better firefighters, and they can have a place to go where they're surrounded by other viewers and other people who want to make the fire service better, and they want to improve because they know who they're here for.
I love it. Thank you, brother. That sums it up really well. And I think that also snowballs into where we're headed tonight. It's funny when I kind of put this together and asked you guys to hop in with us to do a live episode, then the comment comes, well, what are we going to talk about? And I know all of you guys are training pages. We are not. We're a culture and tradition page, but I think we can facilitate the conversation tonight with the four of you guys, and what your pages and what your street smart training and understanding and experiences have brought you to where you are today. And those are really some of the stories and ideas that we want to share tonight. And I think rolling into this, a big comment and question that we were talking about the other night is today's training failing to adequately prepare our firefighters for the fire ground today? And I think that's a big drawn out sentence, but in reality, is today's training, what we're teaching in the Proby schools and then through the firehouse and up into these guys becoming a staple in their fire company, are we doing the right thing? Are we checking boxes, or are we actually teaching?
I'll take it if
Yeah,
you don't
please
mind.
hop. Yeah, this is go, man. Let's roll.
I think I don't necessarily think we're failing, but I think the system's broken where, yeah, you have your instructors and the programs throughout Fire One all the way to the highest levels where the instructors are governed to teach a certain way, and that's okay, and that's the way it should be. You should be governed to a point. But I think there's a huge disconnection when you leave the fire academy and you get to that firehouse or you get to that fire floor, like I say. The basic little things are lost. And that whole concept of, all right, kid, this is how we teach it. Know this for the test. And when you get to your firehouse, that's the way it's going to be. That's where the system fails, because not everyone gets to go to that busy firehouse. Not everyone gets that senior guy or that mentor to take it to the next level. And that's where we're falling apart. And I think that is where the problem lies mainly. And that comes not only from the senior guy, but it comes from that middle of the road guy to even that senior probie that gets there that shows you the way. If it wasn't started from here with that senior guy, bringing it all the way down to that newest probie, it's got to be flawless. And if it's not flawless, and nothing's flawless in this job, and that's the problem, that's the problem, and that's where you're going to fail.
Chris, you're shaking your head, bro. Don't be afraid to jump in.
No, so I agree with him 100%, man. There is a disconnect, and the biggest thing, I know every good instructor we have ever done, or all the instructors I work with, they always say, don't let this be your last step in learning. You know, don't let this be your final training, and don't just come to us. Go to other academies, go to other people, take classes, subscribe to certain social media accounts. The biggest problem that we have, though, with the disconnect is in the state of New Jersey, we work off JPRs, and you have to pass a certain test in order to get something. One of them is like tying into a hydrant. You can literally forget to unwrap the hydrant and charge it, and guess what? You hit 7 of the 8 marks, you pass. So we always tell people, like, we teach you just enough to kill you. That's pretty much what it comes down to. And what the top floor is talking about, 100%. You know, the way I teach you is through the book, but every department operates completely different from everybody else. And that's probably the biggest problem we have, because you can always tell when a guy has been in the firehouse for a while, and you'll ask him, for example, for all of us here, when we call a hose roller, what is that? It's something we drain the 5-inch with, right? We roll out the hose. But in the academy, a hose roller is something that you actually throw on the edge of a window and roll the hose up so it doesn't have edge protection. So that's the thing with the schooling and the books. We can only teach so much. And unfortunately in Jersey, the hours are not crazy. You go out west, they have academies for like 6 months, 9 months that they're doing this stuff. It's a little bit
Chris,
different.
do you find on the formalized academy training that we're just checking boxes?
With certain instructors, yeah. I do believe with certain instructors, yes. For instructors who are in the streets and the ones who understand that it's a concrete building and there's a difference between a concrete building and an actual structure building, that, yeah, is on. But that's the way the disconnect happens. Sometimes we have fire instructors who, unfortunately, think about it, they're like strippers. All they care about is your money. They'll make you happy. And then as soon as you leave, they don't care about you.
I like that.
Doesn't sound like any strippers I know.
I want to meet your strippers.
Nick, hop in, brother, because I know, teaching and instructing is big for you. Maybe you can hit on the formalized training, and then where I really want to take this thing is navigate it to the company level training.
Right. So I do believe that the vast majority of the textbooks are flawed. I think the curriculum is flawed. I know it's not, schools don't like to hear that, but when you write a curriculum based on a consensus standard of people that are in a room, and then you try to boil it down and give everybody their little point that they like, it just becomes so irrelevant. And then unfortunately, you do end up teaching to the JPR, not because you want to, but because you have to. The other thing too is either side of it, the paid side or the volunteer side, it's very hard to justify extended hours. First of all, volunteer departments don't necessarily have the money to pay for it. Volunteers, their time is already tight and they're learning all sorts of crazy stuff. Like hazmat is actually like the jewel of Fire One, which is a joke, but whatever. So my takeaway from it has always been that we tell you what to do and how to do it, but we never take that next step and teach you the why you're doing it or when you're supposed to do it. Right. And so JPR, everybody sees the pavement is all scarred at the window, and that's where you put the 24, the butt of the 24. There's no thought process behind it because they just want to throw the ladder and pass. They're not thinking about why do I throw the ladder there and things like that. So,
which is a mindset, right? I mean, we gotta teach mindset.
Right.
And Jeremy, I think, and to piggyback off of what Nick's saying, I agree with what everybody is stating. Obviously, we're testing to a standard, and we have to be able to test aptitude. But unfortunately, we're also setting these students up for failure. We're putting them into buildings with, a lot of times they are Class B buildings. I haven't gone into an actual fire yet and had a flaming gas-fed bed but that's what we're actually putting these students through. And then when we are using true Class A materials, it's some pallets and hay. And unfortunately, it's just giving them a false sense of security. I don't personally teach at an academy. I have been through a couple of them, each one of them being significantly different. But again, they're all teaching for a purpose so that they can check those boxes off. But we need to do more than that. And kind of what was stated a little bit earlier, as far as when they get into the firehouse, it really depends on where you go. I started off, like many people in here, in a volunteer service. We were only really able to drill, or I should say organized drill, once a month. So that was, or I'm sorry, once a week. Apologize. Once a week. I could obviously go down to the firehouse whenever I wanted and get my hands on equipment, but I didn't have that mentorship there other than that one time a week. Whereas, going out and being a paid fireman, it's a little bit different. And we're actually surrounding ourselves with crews, and we're able to learn a little bit more from them.
Yeah, and I think too, just thinking of the structured academy, when we take the day one probie and then we get them to the company, right? So really, in a structured academy, we're teaching fundamentals, we're teaching little theory, right? And then really, what I find now, it seems to be the norm, is the academy is pushing them out and then putting it back on the department to really try to mold, shape, and groom, their probies.
Well,
And
I also think it depends on the academy that you're running. Like some of like Matt's 4-letter department has an academy that's very specific for them, where they fit into that mold. But like right now, currently, we're sending our guys to the state academy, and you have, I think, probably 40 different instructors from 40 different departments who are throwing out information. And like the guys came back to it today, and we were like, "Why are you having trouble with lines?" And they're like, "Well, we've been doing the triple layer load, and like we don't use that." And they're like, "Well, our instructors are swearing by it. They're like, this is the one." So it's
and there is that disconnect, right? I mean,
yeah.
There's that disconnect. What I love is the company, right? I love the individual company training. I like the influence of the junior, senior, and the senior man influencing the young kid in the firehouse. And I think, Mick, you hit on it before, that it comes from, there's a senior man culture, but there's also that like probie that's the next one up in line when the new probie comes in, that has so much to offer, so much to teach. On the company level, I think it's almost more important than the fundamentals of the academy.
Yeah, I don't think that with the parameters of the senior man, you should really be taking care of the true training on the firehouse. It should be that 8-10-year guy who has some experience, has learned from the guys that are now the senior guys running the firehouse, but that middle of the road to bring in the next level up to speed. And that's the problem. And that's where the real problem lies when you get to certain firehouses, is that middle of the road spent a lot of time on the couch, and they fall into that vortex. And it happens to the best of them sometimes. Listen, we all go through slumps, and if you say you never did, then then you're lying. Like I said, we talked about that during, we all kind of hit a slump in your career. Absolutely. And the problem is identifying that slump and not being scared or embarrassed to come out and say, you know what, I've been here for 8 years, and I don't know if you throw a portable fly in or fly out, if it really makes a difference now. I don't know. And talk about that, learn about that. And this social media thing is great. I don't want to go down the social media rabbit hole right now, but for that 8-10-year guy who didn't pay attention to the senior guys and kind of was just skating through, doing the right thing, great guy, everyone loves him, one of those good dudes, and the fire service is full of them. Now they have the phone where, you know what, I'm going to run a drill today, and go through Instagram and see who's in there and say, okay, this looks like a good thing to talk about. Go over it, cross your T's, dot your I's, and then bring that to the younger guys. And I see that happening more and more, that these guys that kind of laid back are now secretly getting into the job and bringing that to the younger generation. And that's pulling us in the right direction.
I love that.
Awesome.
Nick, what do you got on this? What about the company training, right? From the junior guy with a few years in to the influence of a senior man and even the officers' influence in the company. But, you've been doing this for a few days now. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit about how important that company culture is, especially in the training aspect.
Well, the tough thing with the company culture coming from the senior man is you have to be lucky enough to have that senior man. And I know that it's not necessarily the norm to have a good, strong senior man that's motivated into the company, likes to talk about the job, likes to go to fires, and likes to help people learn. I was fortunate I did have that situation. So the neat thing for me was the dynamic of watching the senior guy very patiently, very methodically break skills down and let the younger guys understand it. And more importantly, he could do it with a way that it mattered, right? I can, as the officer, I'm the figurehead. I say, you have to do this, and then we'll go out and do it. And then it's just because maybe they think I'm checking a box. But when it comes from the senior man, that's that legitimacy. And also, he may put his spin on it based upon the things that he's run into, the construction in the district and stuff like that. So that really does help out. If you can have that situation, I think there's a lot to be gained from it. One other thing too with the senior man though is that, don't think you have to have that perfect senior man. Everybody that's been on the job for a while has something to share, right? So get the nuggets out, and the rest of it you can kind of move on a little bit. But there are good things to be found from everybody.
Chris, can you talk about the young senior man?
It's something we came up with when I started my job. There was a guy, he's only on for 3 years. And we have house watch. So every single day, house watch has to be opened up at 6:30. You got to open up the gates. You got to raise the flag, do the house watch book and everything else. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and this guy Armstead, he actually woke up at 5:30 and opened up the gates, raised the flag and everything else. And I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? Let me do my, I would have done it. He's like, no, but now we have time to go over more stuff. So he actually, without saying anything, and there was a class before him as well and after him, he took it upon himself to wake up, to show me the ropes. Anytime we had a problem, he showed me the SOPs, the SOGs, our union contract. He went over every single thing in the morning. And every single morning when I had house watch, he would wake up also just to make sure that I'm doing my job and helping me out with it. So the one thing I found out with the young senior man is when we taught it is anybody can teach, just like Nick said. I found out recently that I learned the same amount of stuff from a bad officer and a good officer. Because a bad officer, I find out what I don't want to do and what a situation I don't want to put myself in. And a good officer teaches me other stuff as well. But you can learn from anybody. It doesn't matter if it's the guy who has 20 years on a job, 5 years on a job, 2 years on a job. The class just came in. We have 2 locksmiths. We have a mechanic. So learning from everything. A senior man doesn't necessarily have to be the guy with 22 years on the job. Anybody can step up and lead.
I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Pags, what do you have on this topic, brother? You come from a very structured environment where there is a pecking order, and company culture is imperative.
Oh, huge, absolutely. I guess I'm going to kind of differ a little bit from Mick in the fact that probably one of my best instructors and probably the one who had the most influence on me was a true senior man. It was when I started in a volunteer department. He was a former chief. He actually ran the junior program and really took a lot of passion in that. And he actually recently passed away after serving that department for close to 60 years. And even up to the last couple months, he was still had an active role in teaching. Granted, some of his tactics might have been a little outdated, but his passion was still there, and he still had those little nuggets here and there. But stepping back from that, there are also junior guys that have that unique kind of charisma about them and are almost natural born teachers. Some of which maybe even having a teacher background, kind of like what Chris was just talking about. Everyone kind of comes from a different background. If you were an elevator mechanic, that's awesome. Teach us something about elevators. If you were a plumber before you came on this job, we're gonna draw a lot from you. So it's kind of unique to kind of tap everyone for their abilities, and it's important no matter how much time they have to kind of listen to them and respect what they have to say.
Yeah, I think everybody brings a lot to the table. I think we have to be willing to let people bring something to the table, and then we got to be able to want to learn. I have something written down before when we were talking about it. I have obligation is on the individual, though. I think
Jeremy,
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Can I just add to what
Yeah.
Matt said? Because he brought up a great point. You know, the true like way senior man, the 40, 50-year member. What's neat about those guys, first of all, they love it when somebody that's as old as their grandchildren try to interact with them about the fire stuff. But also what you can get from that is you may not get the latest and greatest tactic, but I think what's missed a lot is how did we get to 2020 when you were doing it in 1970? And so like for my job, a lot of guys, they didn't understand why we had 2 lines at different lengths, or why do we stretch the 2.5 and then flake off of it this way instead of another way? And then when you find out the history of the department and why we used to do that, and we still do it, it's not that we used to do it, it's just we're not doing it as often. It really does help to fill in the gaps. And so that super senior man is a great asset because it's fun to get the history. It's fun to kind of keep that going down the road, but also you can really learn about why your department does things a certain way. Even if you might think it's the stupidest thing, and then you talk to a senior guy and suddenly you're like, oh, wow, now it all makes sense.
To go off that,
I love those.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
To go off that, Nick and Matt, both what you said. Matt, you said a thing, passion, and that's something that is not taught. It's something that's shown, and that's shown by example, and that's when those guys really are key. My senior guy, where I work, got 40 years. Like the guy's tremendous. Still the first one dressed. Still the first one on the rig. Hangs out, rides to the hour every time. Like the guy's tremendous, and that's something that he doesn't teach. It's something that he shows, and that's what you really get from those true senior guys.
I love it. And it comes down to the individual, right? That's where I was kind of headed with this is the obligation, I think, falls on the individual. We as a company have a responsibility to pass on the storytelling, the stories, the culture, the tradition. Nick, what you talked about, what shaped us to who we are and why we operate the way we do, right? And then, but we tend to shy away from this conversation about the ownership of it, the individual ownership. I think it's easy to blame others. I think it's easy to point the finger. And I'm talking about responsibility, not just of the probie, but the responsibility of the more senior guys in that company also that have to pass on that understanding of what the company is all about and that company culture and the storytelling. We have an obligation to pass that on.
Jeremy, I'll tell you, I'll take it from 2 aspects there. Negativity is very easy to project upon to others instead of actually looking at yourself. And a lot of times, so if you are that 8-year, 10-year, 15-year guy, and you've been sitting on the couch for maybe the last 5-7 years, you don't want to actually say, I can't do something. You don't want to look bad. We're all alpha males for the most part. We're all alpha dogs, no matter what gender you are. That's just our personalities. That's what drove us into the fire service. So we don't want to be shown up by somebody else who just came onto the block. And, sticking with that, newer guys have to also take some sort of initiative when they come out of the academy. It's not just, you can't expect to go in the firehouse and for people to just start teaching you things. You got to come into the firehouse with an attitude of asking questions and wanting to learn and attending classes outside of your job. You really have to, you want to just continue to push yourself to be better at your job and make yourself the best that is out there.
I agree. Tons, you want to hop in on this? Because, we got a little chat going too, and you got a few comments about that, and I agree, brother. Can you hit on that?
Unmute yourself.
Biggest thing is don't be scared if somebody knows more than you. And this is something I found out, with my position. So I've only been on the job for 5 years now, and I had good officers. And what they would always do is, you still respect the rank of an officer 100% no matter what. I understand that. What they would do is they would come to me and they would ask me a question. Hey, listen, what do you think about this? What's the newest terminology with this? They were not scared of having somebody know more than them. And what they did is it actually showed, hey, listen, anybody can teach you something. Doesn't matter how long you've been on. But I've had other people also that since I've only been on, let's say, for 2 years, well, I can't let this kid show me up. I can't let this kid teach anything because, like what Boogie Down just said, they don't want to be embarrassed. So one thing I learned as a younger guy is if I'm teaching and I'm teaching a group of senior firefighters, I always get that senior firefighter to be on my side. I'll tell them, hey, listen, we're teaching ladders today. Can you go over the 24 extension ladder and just show everybody how they do it? Because if I get the senior guy to help me out and teach, everybody's also going to listen to me then, because I have the respect of the senior man. I have the respect of the officer.
I like that. I think
What makes that easier too, and I found a lot of times recently, I found myself, I guess, in that middleman role at this point, and I have a passion to be sharing all the knowledge that I personally have with anybody that's willing to listen, even when they're a lot of times not willing to listen. But if you go to the junior guy and start to build them up as well, actually say, hey, what do you want to know? We're going to drill on the fast pack tonight. I'm going to give you 20 minutes, go print out everything on the fast pack, get yourself, maybe refamiliarize yourself with it. And then you're going to go ahead and run this drill, because eventually that person is going to be in that position where they will be running the drills and will be taking the initiative.
Do you guys think that there's a like a culture of like being afraid to fail? Because I've like to encourage people like to fail in the training ground and fail around us, because that's the time to do it. And there's a lot of times where people are nervous about being like, hey, I don't know how this works. But if I admit that, maybe I'm going to look like I'm not doing my job. But I'm like, hey, tell me if you don't know this, because then we can work on this.
I love when people fail. I absolutely love when people fail, especially at the academy or when we're training. And I tell people all the time, if you did it perfect every single time, what happens if a situation came up that really screwed you up and you couldn't solve it? I'd rather you fail here, because I am not perfect by any means, but the only thing I am perfect at is I'm perfect at never making the same mistake twice. So that's what I love at the academy, is when people fail at this stuff and it's like, all right, well, maybe why didn't it work for you? Well, I stretched this way. Okay, now you know never to do that again. We learn more from our failures sometimes than our successes. And I absolutely love that. Fail, man. It's okay. On the fire grounds.
It's good to embrace it.
Oh my God, 100%, bro. 100%.
One of my favorite quotes, I would rather do something and fail than to something and fail than to do nothing and succeed. And it's true. A lot of guys are just very content doing nothing and not bettering themselves, instead of actually trying to put themselves out there and be willing to fail.
Right. And
we can take it another way too. We get a lot of messages because we do talk about tradition and culture, and we talk about the way the firehouse is and the dynamics. We get a lot of people, especially younger firefighters, that reach out that basically are throwing out a life rope and saying, we need help. Our culture is lacking. Nobody wants to train. There's a lack of initiative. There's a lack of care, and so on. Where I'm taking this is very much this. You guys talk about failing. I think part of, or a lot of what we're dealing with are managers that might not have the answers and can't fail in front of their firefighters, if you will. And I think what happens then is that becomes more of an uncomfortable environment where it's more of a standoff, do what I tell you type atmosphere, which really pushes people away or pushes them in a different direction where we need to be. It's not so much embracing, because you're feeling threatened, right? When you have a manager or a leader or a senior guy that doesn't have that answer, most of the time they get threatened. They don't find it as an opportunity to learn and let their guard down, because Matt, like you said, we are a lot of alpha dogs in this industry. So we'd rather push the person away and move on than address the issue. I think that's happening a lot in fire companies these days, where, people are asking more and more questions. The younger generation obviously likes to ask the question, why? I have 4 kids. I hear why. I think that's probably the most used word in my house every single day. I think it's an interesting conversation, though, when our leaders might not have all the answers and they're being asked why. I think it comes down to individual character about how they handle themselves and answer that question.
Well, I mean, there's so much to that right there. Just to back up real quick, there's so much learning that can be done in the recovery. If you make a mistake, like Chris said, it's almost better, because if you make a mistake at 3 PM on the training ground and you figure out what it looked like when you did it wrong and you fix it, now you know what it looks like when it's going right. When I need you to do it right the first time at 3 AM, now you're programmed to have that recovery mechanism, which is so much better than this just rote check in the box thing. So we have a big problem with our leadership, and I'm not saying any specific one, but just in general, this whole mindset where they have to be perfect in their way or the highway. And the reality is, like, if you want to nurture people, let them run, show them what their bounds are, and let them do their thing, set the expectation. And we have to get away from this whole thing where we actually are worried about how they're doing it specifically. It's like, if I tell you I need you to ladder the rear of the building, look, there's 3 floors and smoke's blowing out of the 3rd floor. I think you should know to grab a 35 and throw it to a 3rd floor window. It shouldn't be, I shouldn't have to tell you how to do it exactly. And then if you grab a 28 instead, but it still worked, good for you. We'll talk about it, but it wasn't bad. That's not a failure.
I think when I started in Poughkeepsie, there was a great fireground officer, Dave Sipes, is the captain, and he said to us in our probationary year, he said, D is the objective. If you go ABC to get there, or CBA, just try not to be BAC when you're here on the job. But he's like, in all honesty, as long as you get to that objective, and don't get hung up in the check boxes and the procedures, because as long as the job gets done, that's what we're all about. And I thought that was one of the most, like, the strongest things I learned in my probationary year. God rest his soul.
That's a great lesson, and that's a great standard to have. And unfortunately, the vast majority of places don't have that mindset.
I think a lot of, sorry.
For those who teach in the academy, do they actually give the why, or are they just following those JPRs? And
So all depends on the instructor.
yeah, I wonder if they give the why there.
That's
But
gonna
I don't think they do.
I always whenever I'm teaching, whenever we're doing something, they tell, okay, so what are you doing? I'm looking above. All right, why are you looking above? Because that's what we're told to do. No, you're looking above for obstructions. You're looking to see if there's wires or anything else. You're looking to see if there's a person out the window. You're looking to see if there's somebody on the ground that just jumped out the window. I don't care if you know how to do it. I want to make sure you know why you're doing it. That's my biggest thing whenever I'm teaching. I always, and also the instructors I'm with that are solid guys, they always want to make sure that that's great. Anybody can read a book. Anybody can know how to do something, but I want to know why you're doing it this way. Like, why are you hooking up that outlet that way? Well, the red wire goes here. Why? That's the way it always does. Do you know why though? What happens if you put it the other way? I don't know. I always do it this way. You should know what happens if you do it wrong. 100%, bro.
Jeremy, you always talk about how it should be the probie asking the questions, right? They have to come in with that drive to understand and learn. We all know that our job is reactive instead of proactive, and I think that's a lot of this. Not so much disconnect, but you have to think. We start every single tour when we go to work, every single one. We started in reverse. We started with the past. Yeah, we're checking the rig, but we're checking the rig because in the past this went wrong with it, or the saw wasn't filled up, or the cylinder was empty. Everything we do is reactive. I think, and I like to say the whole future of the next level of this is to weaponize your mind in the sense where you can look past the reactive and be proactive. And that's going to make you the next generation of a great fireman, is understanding that, yes, everything you do is in order for a reason and why we do it. And that's been passed on. And we run drills for reasons, and we do down firefighter removal, and we have a fast pack, and we do life-saving removal. We do all these certain things because we are living in the past. I think where the true disconnect comes from, once we get past the basics of using tools and forcing doors and pulling ceilings, all that, now it's time to train this, right? Drill on your mind, get that squared away where you can be looking ahead, not necessarily training on the past. Understand, you pull up to a building, your mind is already at letter C, D, E, F, G, thinking about where you need to be, the spots you have to fill, and what's going to happen when you get there. And if things are different when you get there, that's when you start to understand when things start to go wrong. And when things start to go wrong, and identifying that, that's going to bring your training back to that reaction of the stuff you're learning about being reactive instead of proactive.
Something too that I think younger guys and girls don't understand is that they see a senior firefighter, everything seems to come natural and they do it and everything goes great. And then when they're done, they clean their stuff and then it's just natural and that's how it's supposed to be. They don't realize that it's really a twofold issue. First of all, they had a career of screw ups to get to that point, but also they've learned that the fireground isn't, and exactly what you just said, it's not one decision. It's a series of very small decisions and minor corrections. So knowing your role, knowing where you're seated that day, and your tool assignments and things like that, that whole prep goes a long way. But then once you finally get on that scene, the fire gets a vote, the construction gets a vote, all those things. Don't make one big crazy decision. It's chip away and make small decisions. And then from there, you can make modification. And that's where you're going to become successful. And that's the hard thing to really teach, is that slowing down will actually speed things up.
Slow is fast in this job. We always say, from getting dressed to forcing doors to pulling ceilings, slow is fast.
Mick, I love the way you speak about the job, because you talk about do it with purpose and be a gentleman. I love that. I think that's missing. I think a lot of that type of mentality is missing. I think we're losing the gentleman. I think we're losing the now that we're not allowed to handshake anymore. But just that type of. Go ahead, Nick. Nick Esposito.
So I'll tell you a funny story. So I get on my job, and I'm just like everybody else. I'm running 100 miles an hour. I want to do everything. I don't want to screw up, and I want to please everybody. So I go to a job, and I'm with a buddy of mine. He's on another company, and he's a bigger guy. And we have a few years on. And so there's this other kid that just came on, and he's a big kid too. And he like hooks the ceiling 3 times and taps out. And my buddy's like, dude, you're giving fat guys a bad name. Slow down. You'll get it. We're going to pull the ceiling. We're going to open the walls. Take your time. And that was like, for me, it clicked. It's like, yeah, kind of funny making fun of the fat kid. But the reality was, look, just slow down, and that's what all these old timers did. Nobody was moving fast. Nobody was moving crazy. It was economy of movements and all these other things that really allowed them to just do the work and almost seem like it was effortless.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's important, right? I mean, I think about the firehouse. I think about the young kids in my firehouse, and they're wide-eyed and they're always watching. I mean, we always want to say that they're not, that they got their heads down but they're not, right? When we engage them, they're watching and they're taking it all in, and they're watching that senior man move with a purpose, and they're watching how you interact and tell a story in a group. I think all of that's important too. And that kind of rolls into just firehouse culture, right? I mean, this group here is we all believe firmly in the company culture and understanding where you've come from and making sure that we pass it on as we go. And I think it's so important for the younger guy to really get a grasp of how to carry themselves in the firehouse culture as well, around the kitchen table, being a part of a company. A lot of people these days, they're more introverted. They're not a company-oriented type person. And sometimes we have to work harder than ever to make them part of a group. How do we instill that into them that, they need to be a part and need to bring their own, yet comply to what the group needs and wants and desires? Anyone?
I always say you can't force someone to be a fireman. You can try really hard, but when it's all said and done, if they tune out and they want to be an introvert, you can't force them. And unfortunately, you just have to deal with that problem. I don't know what the answer is. And it's a good question, Jeremy. I just don't know what the answer is. I always say good guys gravitate to good places. Yeah. And the shitbags gravitate to shitty places. And you hope if that guy continues not to conform with what the guys are doing, he will find his place, and that's it. And then hopefully that is the answer. But I don't know what you guys think feel about that. But
the first day,
you can't force them. You can't force them to do it.
The first day you got to get them. That's the biggest thing. The first day they come to the firehouse, the first day they come to their shift, whatever it is, the very first day, if you don't tell them what you expect, like the first day I went into work, my battalion chief took me to the office. He said straight up, like, listen, this is a family. All right. Yes, we have a job to do, but this is a family. If you're ever having a bad day at home or something else, you let us know. You got to go upstairs and take a nap. You take a nap, but you better be damn well. If the bell hits, you're sliding that pole. But he told us exactly what he expected from us, exactly what he wanted us to do, what the outcomes were going to be. And he's told us, you just hit the lottery. It's the best job in the world. So if you don't get them within that first day, that first week, that's the thing. You got to let them know what you want.
You know what the problem is also, Jeremy, with that is that there's not enough fires anymore is the problem. You would get a guy like that wouldn't conform. And okay, then you get an ass-kicking job that afternoon, and next thing you know, his paper's in and he's going somewhere else. So that's the problem. Shitbags can hide out in really good places, and that's a shame. It's just the life we're living, man. I think all of us right here in this panel should have been fired 40, 50 years ago, but we're living it now. So,
You know, Mike, I'm going to jump in and say kind of the almost, I don't want to say the opposite, but I almost think if we had more fires, it might bring some guys closer as well. Because
good point. Very good point.
How much you depend on one another. And, you know, it's easy to sit around the kitchen table and pick out who's not cooking. But when you're actually putting your life out there, when you're actually in the heat of battle, you realize how much you depend on one another to do the job. And that will bring you closer together.
I like that, Matt. Thank you for correcting me, because I had a negative idea in there. You brought me around to a positive.
I'm trying to keep it positive in this day and age, my friend.
No, I do. Thank you. I appreciate it. I mean, that's nice, man. You know.
But I think about like Mo Davis talking about like not essentially shaming guys, but like if the whole company and you can get other people in that company positive, like the introvert, the person sitting back, they're either gonna like get with the program or they're gonna be like, hey, like you said, they'll put those transfer papers in. But I think the positive is always better than a negative. So if everybody's engaged or having that, like I don't say the good time, but they're having a good, like they're all training together, they're enjoying it. It's not a tedious task. Like with coronavirus, we've been deconning everything, constantly spraying stuff down. Every time the ambulance comes back to the station, it's getting wiped down. And when I first thought, like, man, we're gonna have to do this, but everybody on the shift pitches in. And this thing that we thought was going to be like just, you know, big task is over and done with in 5 minutes. The ambulance is ready to go for the next call, and the crew and everybody is back sitting around the coffee table talking about it, being like, man, how did we do this before? So I think company pride, like even if you do have that one person, if everybody's all in, so to speak, except for this one person, they're either going to leave, like Mickey said, or they're going to kind of come around and be like, hey, because nobody wants to. I mean, I don't really think the introverts want to sit there on that couch, you know, especially when everybody's engaged. I mean, maybe there's some of them that do. I don't doubt it, but
some people you just can't shame, Rob. You know that.
Yeah.
So, Chris, I feel that you were very lucky that you were able, that chief grabbed you the first day. But imagine if you were on another shift, you know, it's very possible that you could have slipped through the cracks. And, you know, you do see it happen. And that's why I feel that people do make moves out there. They realize there is other things, other opportunities for themselves. But I do believe a lot of that comes through self-motivation. And a lot of it, like Nick was saying, you just can't teach. It's one of the, you know, they always talk about that list of things that take no skill, right? You know, one of them just showing up, be present, you know, take an interest. That's really all it is. But it doesn't take any skill for those things.
You know, a big thing too is that, and I've kind of used this a lot, is that you can't sit on the couch if we're not in the firehouse. So, you know, as an officer, I have that luxury. Come on.
Is that going to be your next sticker, by the way?
It may be. I got a flaming dumpster thing that everybody seems to be hot for too. So I don't know. But
I like that, Nick.
Yeah. But so that's like a big thing. And you know, a guy that I took a lot from, and he got it from Rex Morris, is train them up or train them out. You know, and so we would go out and train. And even if we weren't training hard, we're looking at buildings, we're talking about neighborhoods. Where, hey, you're on the road. Hey, how's your wife doing? What's your kids up to? And you're trying to get them to buy in, and all of those different family type environments, you kind of get right out of the rig. You know, hey, we're going to stop and get Italian ice. We get an Italian ice place, you know, and then sit there for a half hour, have an Italian ice and just talk. Next thing you know, they start to get invested, and you know, that kind of does work out. The other thing too, whether they liked it or not, I would go out, you know, if we had a late night run, you know, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, there was a big type 2 vacant, not far from our firehouse. Guess who's throwing ladders at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night? This guy, right? And so you either liked it or you didn't. And you either figured out that we were going to keep doing it until you said you liked it, and then we wouldn't do it anymore, or we're just going to keep doing it. You know, so, and then the other thing that we would do is, you know, if you set the standard as an officer or the senior man, you know, use the other members to your advantage. So if you have a guy on the company that's the same age or maybe a little older than this problem employee or this vulnerable employee, that's the whole good cop part. Hey buddy, what's going on? Listen, these guys are really cool. We're having a lot of fun here. We like you here. Those guys told me to come and tell you, you know, you're doing a good job. Keep doing a good job. And then if that doesn't work, now you put the senior man on them and say, hey bro, listen, you know, our company's a proud company. We really, you know, like what we're doing, and we, you know, our turnout time's fast. Gets the buy-in there. And then finally, if it gets to the point where they're coming to see me, then it's kind of hard to reel that one in.
Yeah, you hit on something too, Nick, which I just want to hop back to a little bit. You said they got to be invested, talking about family, talking about knowing who you're working with. Mick, when you were on our show, brother, a couple of weeks ago, you talked about this at length about how important it is on the actual buy-in, right? It's one thing to be in the company and to come down the pole, run out the door 10, 5, 20 times a shift, right? It's another thing to be invested into that company culture, right? Knowing families, knowing the kids of the guys you're riding with, can you talk about that a little bit? Because that was one of the real strong points that I enjoyed during our episode with you, was the buy-in that you think is so important.
Yeah, it's I think I said in your show is that the fires are just a bonus. The brotherhood, the job is the family, and I don't mean family in like, all right, we're going drinking tonight. I mean family like, I want to know your kids' names. I want to know how they're doing in the sports. I want to know your wife's name. I want to know how work is and what's going on. I want to know what you're doing with your family every weekend. And the first thing I need to come in, how was your weekend? How was your day? This and that. You have to take it to that level, because when shit goes wrong on the fire floor, it's not about 1 and 2. It's about 1 or 4 in my case, and 1 in his case, maybe 6 family members I'm talking. So my 4 to his 6, I'm going to make the push to get that 6. Not just that one dude who made a great meal the night before, or he pissed me off because he didn't pick up my door. No, I know his kids, and I saw them at the Christmas party, and they were playing with my kids. And, that's truly what this job is about. And without that mindset on the fire floor, I don't think we'd be very successful, to be honest with you. And if you don't identify that, then you're not going to be successful on the fire floor.
Mike, when you made that statement right there, I automatically thought about Joey DiBernardo and what he did for Jeff Cool. And that's exactly it right there. When you talk about him, throwing the rope, them exchanging the rope and talking about the fact that Jeff, you have kids, and that's really what it's down to.
And like you're saying, man, let's imagine Joey didn't know that, because you know what? He watched too many episodes of whatever was Netflix that's a few months ahead of time and didn't really talk about the kids. Like, those moments don't happen then. And then what happens? You know what I'm saying? Those moments is what truly makes the job.
Wow, that was powerful. I don't know if everybody knows what you guys are referring to, but would you mind just exploring that a little bit further, or no? I mean, I know you guys are very close to it, but you're referring.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can actually do it justice. I
know that, but it refers back to.
Sure, obviously, what they refer to as Black Sunday now, the fire on 178th Street, when the guys were from 27 and 3 were up on the top floor, conditions rapidly changed, and they were forced to jump out the windows. And there was an exchange outside the window about who was going to go. Joey had a rope, and it was between Joey and Jeff Cool about who was going to go out first. And Joey said, Jeff, you go, you got kids, and then I'll lower you down. And then Joey ended up going afterwards.
And just sitting here, I mean, I'm like, I've heard the story from people that were directly involved and so on. And it's a really moving story. But Mick, it really hits on what you're talking about on this buy-in. And Nick, you mentioned it too, the buy-in and knowing who you're with. I mean, the company culture goes farther than the ball busting and running fires, right? Like Mick, you said it's 10%. Going to fire is 10% of the job, right? The rest of it is with everything that comes with it. And that's the culture. I think so many people, so many guys and girls on this job are looking for it, and they're having a hard time finding it. There was a comment just before in the scroll in the feed that said, I work a 48. And he's like, here, I got it right. Currently, by my new department, we work 48s. We have one meal together, and after training, everybody seems to disappear to the bunks. He goes, I need help. It's hard. It's hard. That's more.
I got something for that. I got something for that.
Yeah, do it, man, because people are looking for advice here.
So this is kind of piggybacking off what you guys were speaking about earlier, as far as the trying to bring training into this and win the drill and the senior guy and this, and now the brotherhood and the culture, and then having those shitbags who don't know the job. There are so many lessons to be learned and taught in the firehouse. It has nothing to do with the big red truck, with the tools, with going to the fires. It's simple as committee work, prepping the meal. It's all a team. It's a family, right? So it's as simple as, and if you saw my last post about pulling the pin, right? My opinion, a great fireman, right? Yeah, he can do all these things. The key thing is to know where to fit in. So by pulling that pin after that the other guy cuts the gate or cuts the locks, right? He pulls that pin. He knew where to be the next step. Well, that's as simple as sweeping the floor and then getting the mop bucket ready. Simple lesson. Simple as you're chopping onions, right? You're going to make a nice sauce on a Sunday, right? Chopping onions, getting the garlic ready. Well, get the guy to get the oil ready. He knew where to fit in. That's a lesson right there. That's the guy who stretched the line. Now, the onion choppers chasing the kinks. Basic stuff, man. Like, so there's so many lessons on so many levels. If you can take those lessons and then flip them to these guys that are lost in the Brotherhood or not one to train, they want to be that introvert, just tell them, listen, you just chopped the onions. I'm going to get the oil ready. And then when it's all said and done, that's your drill for the night. Talk about it. Listen, if the onions were the kinks and oil was the nozzle, I just stretched the line, man. That was a drill. Easy drill. He's the guy who didn't want to drill earlier. He doesn't really part of the Brotherhood of the family. Well, he's forced to when you're prepping the meal. Break it down for him so that he understands it. When you go out the door 10 minutes later, he's thinking about onions, you're thinking about oil, and it's done.
I love it. I love that.
It really is that simple.
Yeah.
Honestly, that was great, Mick. Absolutely.
So
Kind of like my paint, Matt, right? No, Matt always breaks my balls about my paint analogy, my being a painter.
Not so well. I love it, man. It's good, Mike. It's golden, bro.
I think all of this is, and you know, I'm looking at this tonight. We got over 170 people watching live right now on our YouTube live feed, and I think it's fantastic. And I think it's because people are looking for something. You know, you guys here tonight are people that are followed and looked up to in the fire service. You know, more than ever now in the fire service, we have the ability to find outside training. We have the ability to find outside influences that we never really had before on such a scale. You know, even going 5 years ago, let alone 10 to 20 years ago, you know, there were only one or two big platforms that allowed for the message to get out. And then there were a handful of training conferences. Bring it fast forward to 2020. I mean, before the coronavirus settled down in the United States, I mean, there are conferences everywhere. There's there's tons of training companies. There are training pages such as the four of you that put out articulate, smart, well thought out, and street authenticity type training that people come to rely on from you guys. Never before have we had the ability to do this. How important is it today more than ever for firefighters to seek out this external training and finding other avenues to better themselves?
You know, it's Jeremy, we talked about it a little bit earlier. You do see a lot of companies popping up or a lot of training pages popping up. And a lot of guys are negative. Right away, their first thought is to be negative towards them. But we kind of talked about it before. Maybe there's some kid in a rural department that came up with something that, you know, he's able to pass along to other departments. And if, you know, it doesn't matter what his experience level is, we should embrace that instead of trying to knock it. And I just feel like a lot of times we're quick to judge on the basis that they don't necessarily have all the experience. Again, we don't know their history. We don't know where they came from. So we should, again, if it's a good idea, we should embrace it. The only thing that I can personally say that upsets me is when guys blatantly rip things off and don't give credit, because like many others, I'm sure all of us do it all the time. We are constantly giving information that was passed down to us, but it's important that we acknowledge where we got it from and continue to honor those that we learned from.
The only thing I got with that for like, I know for me, what I always tell people, same thing when I'm teaching, if you take something from me, by all means, I don't care. Like me, I do not care. But the only thing I challenge you to do then is make it better and make it your own. If you just take something and use it and pawn it off as yourself, you're doing no justice to the fire service. If you take something, let's say I take something from you, Boogie, if I take something from you, guess what? This is from you, but I'm going to make it better than yours, because that's how we get better. We learn from each other and we make ourselves better every single time.
You take ownership of it, right?
Boom.
And that's the thing. I mean, you know, everybody that's on here tonight watching this content, they could be doing something else, but they choose to be here tonight because we afforded them the ability to be here tonight. I think that's awesome, because never before have we been able to do that until the last few years, where we have the ability to put out content where 6 guys sitting in a chat room tonight that just have some real world experience and want to share some stories and experiences. People are looking for that. And I think this is the way that we have the ability to influence and mold and shape firefighters that are looking for some type of influence, that they might not be getting it in their own house. They might not be getting it in their own company or department. And they're looking for something more. So this is fantastic. So external training, let's talk about the importance of that. These conferences, pushing the ownership of yourself to go out and push yourself to be better. Nick, would you mind hopping in on that? I know you like to instruct and teach. Just how important is it for the mindset of the firefighter to go try different things, meet different people?
Well, it's tremendous. And, you know, Matt in particular has been around quite a bit too. The guys here get a lot of contact with other people, and that's very important, because, you know, you realize that your way isn't the only way. Your way isn't the right way. There's a lot of different ways. And what's really neat is when you teach, you learn, right? But when you can go and share something and see a student from a different region totally interpret it a different way and make it 5 times better than what you thought you were doing, and you already thought you had, you know, the best way. It's like, man, why didn't I think of that? You know? So it's really just great to get out and see different people and even just the culture and all that. And feel like you're with people that are just trying to learn something new, even if it's not the latest and greatest. It's just different, and there's so much to be gotten from it. I mean, it's just a great environment. Get out of your little bubble and go and push yourself a little bit.
Nice. Maddie, you've traveled all over, man. You and I've gone to a couple different conferences, training conferences together. How important is it to align yourselves with like-minded people, and what does that do to you? You know, what does that do for your own self-worth and growth?
Yeah, Jeremy, it's been when I started this journey in the fire service, I never in a million years would have thought or expected for it to go this way, and I've just been extremely fortunate. And I have had the ability. I know we were just out in Texas recently, been all across the country. And teaching, and I'll tell you that I actually feel bad because I feel like a lot of times I'm taking more than I'm giving, and it truly is a breath of fresh air. We all get in the ruts. Anyone who sits there and says they've never been in a rut in their career is flat out lying to you, because it just happens. And when you go to these things, you just get this resurgence, you know, and it just, you know, you leave there and you want to high five and hug everybody when you walk out and when you get back into work. I know that, of course, that's not allowed anymore. Hopefully we can do it again one of these days. But until that happens, we'll just have to do some foot taps. But it is just an amazing, amazing feeling to surround yourself with people that are just all on the same page. It really is, and from all regions. I love asking, people are always asking questions to me, and I want to learn more about them than they do about me. I can't explain the 25-man group chart. It's impossible. They had a class on it in Proby school. I can't, I still don't know when I work half the time. But, it's just, listen to things like Mo Davis the other day. I can't wait to go to work. When meeting that man and listening to him, absolutely phenomenal. And I've had many, many experiences like that throughout this country, and I hope to continue it.
I think one of the things too with these conferences is that you get there, and there might be a little apprehension at first. And this is speaking for me, going to something like Burning in the Bayou and participating in it for the first, for that first day to document it from this perspective of a student with National Fire Radio. But you're there, and probably within the first 25 minutes, you realize you're surrounded by people who are there to better themselves. Nobody was holding a gun to anybody's head and saying, "Hey, you have to be here." So it was very positive to be surrounded by all these people who were there for the right reasons. And that reason was to become better firefighters. And then there was some kind of like community in that. And it was just like Matt said before, like this high-fiving afterwards and this hugging, like you went through something with all of these people.
And Robbie, you make connections that stay with you for a while. You know, I have guys today. I was talking to two guys up in the upper Massachusetts. Actually, one's in Maine, one's in Mass, talking about a conference that's coming up in October. And again, just, you know, you continue those relationships throughout your career. And I'm sure there'll be a time that I can lean on them for something and vice versa.
You know, I just got a text from Gareth, who you met down in Texas. He came out to dinner with us that night. He's a firefighter in Texas, and he sat with us, remember? And he just texted me.
Absolutely.
He was watching tonight, and he said that was a big moment for him in the fire service, because, you know, a lot of people, Mick, you hit on this too in our show, you know, not understanding that there is this whole other culture out there. You know, a lot of guys are in their bubbles. I saw it in the comments before that, and it's not to the detriment of who they are or why they're in that bubble, but they don't know what else or what other opportunities are out there that's afforded to them. And I think it's so important to be able to get out there and try different things. And my biggest thing, I mean, it's probably because, you know, I'm an introvert myself, but just meeting other people. I mean, the storytelling and getting to meet guys. I mean, I didn't know any of you 2 years ago. None of these relationships were formed. You know, this is all new relationships that are based on similarities of what we're all looking for and want, right? I mean, I'm going to walk away from tonight. I'm pumped, man. This has just been a fantastic hour, and I'm hoping to go a little bit longer here with you guys. But I mean, it's just when it works, it works. It's so important to get out and try this. It's important to get out and meet people, and it's okay not to know. It's okay to go learn. You know, going out and being able to learn from somebody else that knows a whole lot more than you do, or maybe just in a different discipline or genre, is incredibly important. It makes you a better person. It makes you a better firefighter all the way around.
Jeremy, like you were saying, I never knew this existed up until probably a year and a half ago. I'd never been to a fire conference in my life. I never did anything beyond what my job has given me. I never thought I needed to. But to be honest with you, after finding all this, I've realized that what I needed was this culture, this family, this subculture that we've all provided. So anyone watching this, listening, or whatever it is, go to these conferences, meet these people, because I didn't. And I waited too long in my career for this to happen. I think timing in life is perfect for me with this, because I feel like I'm at the point now where I can give back a bit. But prior to this, man, only thing I was thinking about was fishing, drinking, skateboarding, whatever it was, man, music, playing my drums, like
shopping.
That's all I wanted to do. I mean, that's all I wanted to do was just like party, go to work, go to fires, hardcore, like just fucking boom, boom, boom. And then I realized this whole thing's out there. And you know what? It's okay to love the job. That's that thing everyone says. And it's the truth, man. And like, screw all these guys out there that are putting down this stuff, man. Listen, I put my face out here right now, and everyone in here knows me that this is big for me. Same with Matt, same with Chris. Nick, you've been out in the scene for a while, but this is big for us, man. This is hard for us to do. It's not easy because we take a lot of heat on the back end from people. So just understand that, like, love it, get out there, do it, live it, be it, man. You only live once. Screw it, man. Like, it's it. Best job in the world, and just embrace it.
If I could add to that and back it up just a little bit, you know, we talked about the Brotherhood. Listen, the Brotherhood isn't something that's sitting on a shelf and you can go buy it. You know, if it's not there, you got to make it. And even if it's there and it's not your flavor, then you're going to have to figure it out. And the next step to this whole social media thing, you know, what some people use social media for, it's an outcry because they work in a place that might be a little sour, or maybe they just work in a small place and it's them and another person. And they're using it as an outlet in order to share information, to just say, hey, we're doing this. What are you doing? You know, and a great example of this, I'm going to out them right here, is a group on Instagram called the Up Valley North Enders. And there's a couple guys out there in California, and they're working very hard and they're rocking and they're doing great stuff on Instagram. And, you know, their beginnings, from what I recall, was that they were just having a hard time. There wasn't much of a culture. So they said, hey, let's make one. And now if you look at them, those guys, if you look at their posts, they're having a good time and they're doing good work.
100%.
Yeah.
Nick, that's actually where, I mean, when you think about it, that's kind of how the Fools organization came to be. Those guys down in Florida that didn't, they were unhappy with the way that the fire service training was going, how it was focused on EMS. It was about getting CEUs. It was about, getting the hazmat training. It was not focused on firefighting. The reason that we came into this profession. And they started an organization called the Fools. And now you see chapters throughout the country that are really doing great things and great training. And it's a tremendous organization to be a part of.
Yep.
I love it. I mean, you guys are hitting on so many things. I wrote down, I have a piece of paper that I'm keeping notes on just as we go. And I wrote down thank you with an exclamation point, Mick, after you talked real quick. Because I can appreciate to an extent how difficult it is for you guys. But you guys walk in some busy firehouses and have to deal with guys that don't really believe in or see the value of putting yourself out there or keeping it in for yourselves. And so for you guys to be here tonight to accept responsibility for the content you're putting out, I know it's not easy for all you guys. And I truly, truly appreciate all of this. It means the world. But I can tell you this, guys like myself take such value away from experiences like this tonight. And I know everybody watching this tonight and everybody that's going to watch this as they go forward and it's available on YouTube, the value that comes out of something like this tonight is just, I don't even know. I mean, I don't even know where to rank it, because what you guys offer and what you bring to the table, whether it's through one of your Instagram posts or it's through doing a live feed podcast with me tonight, the value you guys bring to so many people, I don't think the four of you really understand how much and how big you touch people in a way that could better their fire service careers, their lives. Their people are misguided and or confused or lost, or they're in a rut, like Matt said before. And you know what? Something like this can bring people back on track. And I just Mick, thanks for saying that, because I want to thank you guys for coming in tonight to be able to offer that to everybody that's watching. I mean, it's spectacular. It really is. And we need more of you guys to put out more content like this to really educate our firefighters, especially that younger generation, of what's expected and what we need in this fire service. I think it's fantastic. I really do.
Jeremy, that's great. And just to go off that though.
Yeah.
Any of the young guys out there that are watching this, understand there is tremendous literature out there. Guys, the real deal, man. Like, this is cool. And we all have some experience and some stories to tell, but there is stuff out there. There are guys that are still doing it that aren't getting social media presence. And
Sure.
They have a little bit, but don't overlook that, man, because they are the guys that blaze the trails, lead the way. Their knowledge is just, it's superior. It is what it is. And just seek that out. Take the time to find the old Firehouse magazine, the old Fire Dream magazines. If they're laying around the firehouse, an old article from 1996, you might find like one of those in the firehouse somewhere. Take the time to go through those pages and read it. I know these kids don't even know what a magazine is anymore, but the stuff that's in there and these guys that came before, they're the ones that are doing it, man, and they're still doing it. So just take the time to find it.
Mike, I actually happen to be wearing my Andy Fredericks, my sweatshirt tonight, and you talk about guys that aren't even on social media, or guys that have gone before us that we have to, pay homage to and honor. That man was light years ahead of his time.
Yeah,
the engine. And for the young guys who don't know who Andy is, do a Google search, find some of his articles, find his book. It is well worth your time to research that, and it's a great way to honor him as well.
I think that you talk about that, Matt and Mickey, what you just said about the people before us. An awesome tidbit I got was I actually listened to an older FireX talk, and they talked about this. You can get the book of Andy Fredericks out there, and you can download it into a PDF. And I actually downloaded it and printed it out for guys in the firehouse, because it was so filled with this information. And you talk about the people who like blaze that trail before us. It's a great resource out there, and you can Google it, and it just the book of Andy, there it is, and you can get that, and give it to people and pass that knowledge along.
I think Gary Lane, I think his name is right, did that. I don't know Gary. I just heard a podcast talking about it. Seems like a squared away guy.
Yeah.
But I think he spent a lot of time and money to put that together.
You're correct, Mike. It is Gary Lane. It is. It's not easy to find, but it is out there. And if somebody actually finds me, obviously hit me up on IG. I can point you in the right direction.
I want to say this though too. I agree with you guys 100%, but please understand, you guys are the ones that are educating them about the OGs. Like when technology changes and we push forward, I mean, tonight we're on YouTube and on Zoom, and we have the ability to do this, right? The guys that we read their articles, those OG guys, right? The guys that came before us, the generation before us, and the generation before them, and the generation before them, we have that obligation to pass on more than ever their teachings, because that's what influenced us. If you guys weren't here tonight, the Book of Andy would have never been brought up. We would have never discussed what influenced us. Why are you guys sitting here tonight? Because of all of that. So if you guys weren't here tonight, right, we're never going to forget the ones that come before us, but somebody has to mention it and talk about it. And now more than ever, as technology is changing and pushing forward, you guys decided for your own reasons to start your pages, bring forth that obligation to teach this next generation that might not be reading books. Tell them books are still good. Go read. There's pictures in them, but we have that responsibility and obligation. So, so don't think that your message isn't as important. Your message is as important because it's molding and shaping that next generation while
100%.
the benefits of the previous generation. I want you guys to truly understand that.
Brian Butler from Urban Fire Training has a great thing in one of his classes. He speaks about collapse. And Vinny Dunn, right? As everyone knows Vinny Dunn. If you don't know Vinny Dunn, go buy his book, Collapse and Burning Buildings. But he makes an amazing point where you can read a book now, you read a chapter and say, okay, pancake collapse. Go to your computer, pull it up, and watch pancake collapse 42 times in a row, right? Lean-to collapse. Read that. Go watch that 100 times in a row, right? So that way, in real life, how many times do you see it collapse? Maybe once in your life, if you're unlucky. So that's the level we're at now, where you can take these books and almost cross-reference it with what's going on with us on the social media or the YouTube side, and the OGs, like we like to call them, and what they've written before. You can now read what they do and look at it. And Brian does a great thing, his collapse class. He talks about that and gets into great detail, but great point by Brian for that,
I love it. I mean, that's what this is all about, right? It's taking what we learn, and now more than ever, we can go out, digest what we've learned, and then go explore it even further.
Yeah.
And I think that just reverts into what my theory is on today's training. I mentioned it to you guys just in passing the other day about the whole, I equate it to like an ice cream shop, right? One day you want cookies and cream, the next day you want coffee, the next day you want vanilla. Like, you have the ability now more than ever. And this really brings it full circle how we started the whole conversation tonight. We have the ability now more than ever to seek out whatever types of content and training by whoever we want to, right? If I'm in the mood for building collapse, I can go digest Vinny Dunn. If I want to go after engine company work, I can scroll through like Elkhart and go to Ray McCormick and, guys like that, right? And then, if I want truck work, I mean, like, the list goes on and on. We haven't really had that until the last, I don't know, few years, 10 years, 15 years, but now more than ever, right? We all have the ability, everybody watching tonight, everybody scrolling through, has the ability now, whatever mood they're in or whatever discipline they want to digest, they can go find that. What a valuable tool. What a valuable tool.
We started this talking about the senior man and the training. Well, and I know a lot of people are probably watching this thinking like, well, we don't have a senior man. We don't have training. It's me and 3 other guys sitting around. It sucks. Well, now the senior man is the phone, right? Right here, the palm of your hand. This is your senior man. And like Jeremy was saying, it's an ice cream store. Whatever you want to look at that day, for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes, you want to read 2 hours. It's right here in the palm of your hand. This is all you need anymore. So there's no more excuses. You can't hide anymore. It's all right here.
I agree, Mick. I absolutely agree. Guys, some last thoughts. I mean, the last thoughts are going to go on for a little bit. We've been going for an hour and 15 or so. But I just want to get some last thoughts. I mean, we hit on some great stuff tonight. We could probably go on for hours and hours. But I just want to throw it out there to you guys. Last thoughts. The feedback on YouTube tonight's been fantastic. There's been a lot of back and forth. And the one thing I noticed in the comments, more than any live feed that I've ever watched, whether on whatever platform, but the comments have all been 100% supportive, and people are answering each other on them, and people are asking for emails so they can send people stuff. Like, it's a fantastic community, man. I mean, that's what this is. I'm floored by that. And there were people asking questions on here and so on, just about culture and the situations they're in. But I'd love to maybe just get a few couple minutes out of each of you, or some thoughts or ideas just on some closings as to, I don't know, just your take on tonight and the fire service in general. I'd love to get some closing comments. Anybody want to start? Pags, I threw you under the bus when we first started. So
why not, man? You know what? I feel a lot more relaxed. So let's go with it. You know,
it's that red wine.
It is that red wine. You know,
That's right.
It's funny. I did go to college. I went to school, a very, very small community college out in Colorado, on what I call a fireman scholarship, because I was like a student resident firefighter. Obviously, we didn't have any fraternities, and I was upset by that. But getting into the fire service was a fraternity, and it's actually the largest fraternity there is, and you can't forget that. There are so many people out there that you can draw information from, and are there to support you through good times and bad. And especially during times like this, when we talked about it a little bit earlier, with training classes that are going on online. Not only are myself and Nick and Mike and tons Chris putting out great information, but there's so many other pages. I know Chief Nick Martin down in Salisbury is doing online seminars. I know Bobby Eckhart is doing some. He's actually got a raffle coming up. I know Brian Butler in Trenton. We've already mentioned a lot of these names, and they're doing classes are constantly out there. Take advantage of this right now. This is something that we know there's a lot of seminars and a lot of big, obviously one of the biggest ones was supposed to be in a couple of weeks, and it is, unfortunately, it's canceled, as well as the one in Nashville. But take advantage of what you have at your fingertips, as Mick was just pointing out. Use that phone, use that computer, research things, take the time to actually search things out. Maybe do a little fire service history research, and bring it back to your department and just better everybody, because that's what the community as a whole needs: positivity instead of negativity.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Chris, you got anything for me, pal?
This is my face. I hate you guys for doing this.
Wait, I saw you on the other night, so let's not get carried away here.
No,
yeah.
The hardest thing to do is just understand that don't teach to the choir. Don't preach to the choir. A lot of people want to take your classes because they love you. They want to learn. So you don't gotta go through the whole spiel of, this is why you gotta love the job. We know why they gotta love the job, because they're there. With all the instructors, a good firefighter will realize if an instructor is bullshit right off the bat, or if he's the real deal. Bottom line is, man, anybody can read out of a book. I can read anything off a PowerPoint slide. Anybody can. It doesn't make an instructor. What makes an instructor is somebody who truly cares about them. Academies, it is what it is. There's good academies, there's bad academies, there's good instructors out there, there's bad instructors out there. But what you need to do is stop just seeing stuff online or even on my page or anybody else's page and say, that's the way we got to do it. What you need to do is take this information, test it out yourself, and test it out in the parking lot, but don't rely on that parking lot to be the end all be all for everything. Take it into the streets, take it into the academy, fail, try everything out, but don't automatically read something and be like, well, this is the way it is. Right now, I'm studying for promotional exams. Every single book contradicts itself, every single one. So which one do I go through? Which one do I pick? You have to make the decision for yourself, especially on the streets. On the streets, chapter 4 doesn't put out the fucking fire. It just makes you understand what you're doing. I want to remember the last 4 times I did it, not what it said in chapter 4.
Yeah, well said, Chris. Thank you. It's fantastic. Mick, you had top floor tactics. Talk to me, brother. I mean, you got a lot. You got a lot of great nuggets. I enjoyed my time with you in the studio. What do you have? Some closing remarks for me?
I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to go to the senior men that are tuning in tonight with us. There's probably a few guys you work with that you're all squared away, you're cohesive, you work good together. But understand that when you get to a certain point, it's not over. Now it begins up here. This is what makes good firemen. This is what makes great firemen, is that knowing what to expect, when to expect it, right? So what's going to make me not a better fireman, but know where to be that much more ahead of you is 4 inches. Those 4 inches are between my ears. It's my brain. And you have to get to that level. Yes, we talked a lot about the early stuff about senior guys training probies, new guys, blah, 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 right? And who's going to pass it on? Well, the guy's passing it on. You still have to elevate yourself every day you come to work. You still have to be motivated. And by motivating, you're going to have to look at buildings a little bit differently. You're going to look at situations differently. And that amongst the senior guys, you have to come together and now drill together. Leave the junior guys out of it, come together as a core unit of the company and educate this. By educating that, you're going to pass it on to them. And that's the long run. And that's all I got as far as what we're talking about as far as tactics and training. But thank you, Jeremy, for having me on. And thank you for getting me out of my shell. I thank you all the time. But that's it, man. That's really all I got. That's it, man. And thanks for the guys in here, because everybody in this panel has been super supportive. So, and I think that goes around for all of us. I think we're all pretty supportive of each other. So thank you, guys, and thanks everyone.
Awesome. Thank you.
You.
Mr. Esposito, Truck Tactics. Talk to me, bro.
So I'm going to speak to the guy that feels like he's the man on the island. You know, we all struggle. You know, I go to work some days and I'm not wired tight, and I leave work sometimes and I'm very disappointed at my performance, you know, and so it's a daily struggle. And so, you know, guys have to just realize that. And it's easy to say, always be positive. It's easy to say, don't dwell on the negative, try to find the positive in something. It's a journey. And that's the whole thing. It's like, you know, if you know you're going to go into work and you work with another guy or two other guys or a house full of guys and they're all negative, try to be positive. You know, look past it. And if you can build some coping mechanisms for yourself, it'll be so much better of an experience for you. And you will grow and you will learn and you'll be a much more productive person. And they don't have to like you, but if you know at the end of the day that you put out a good product, that you performed at that call, whether it was just a regular medical call for somebody at a senior center, or if it was a good job, if you know that you put the best version of you out there, then you're winning, you know, and that's really what it's about.
I love it. I think I thank all of you guys for your closing remarks and just your conversation tonight. I cherish opportunities in nights like tonight. And I say opportunity because it's an opportunity for everybody that watched to digest what was said here tonight. None of us have the answers, but I think when you work in a cohesive group and we talk about surrounding yourself with people that enjoy, with similar likes and understandings and so on mentality, we're all going to win. And the opportunity tonight was to get some of you and your messages out there, because I know people are looking, there are people looking for direction. There's people looking for reassurance, and there's people looking for like-minded individuals because they might not have them immediately in their life. And so the responsibility we each carry on with our pages and what we do is massive. And I think the reason why, you guys are so successful with your pages is because you carry that responsibility to heart and you understand how important that is, not just for yourself, but also to the fire service. So, I just want to say thank you tonight for taking the time out of your busy schedules, to be here and to get the good word out. There's so much good in this job. There's so much good to be offered. People have to be willing to open up and digest it and be willing to hear it. But there is so much good out there. Don't let the pessimism win. Don't let the shitbags win. This job is so much bigger than all of that. And thanks, guys. I mean, truly, thank you for being here tonight. I truly mean it. I appreciate all of you. I wish you all the best with your pages and your content, your training, and all your connections. Matt, we'll just go around. Matt, you're the first one on my screen, so that's why I keep coming to you. Matt, with Boogie Down Truck Work, right? The Instagram.
You got it, at Boogie Down Truck Work. And I just got a PDF sent to me with the Andy Fredericks. So anyone who's looking for it can hit me up, PM me, and I will send it to you. I'm also, I have a couple of reading lists that I can kind of go through and pick out probably the best things that you know, about the mental aspect that Mikey was talking about before, and some fire service books that I've read through the years, and pass those along as well if anyone's interested.
Awesome, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Jeremy, I should also
go ahead,
thank you for the opportunity tonight, and obviously thank all the guys. I've met you all personally. I know developed relationships with all of you over the last few, I guess the last year or so. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to those continuing.
Awesome, bro. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Chris, Hook in the Can. It's The Hook in Can, right?
Yeah.
On Instagram. And thank you for your content, bro. Your page is fantastic. You're crushing it.
Yeah, it's just bottom line. It's about being fun and having a good time. And if I can make somebody learn and laugh at the same time, the fire service saved my life. I was in a dark time when I was younger, and if it wasn't for the fire service, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. So the way I say it is, this saved my life, and the least I could do is share some knowledge.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. That means the world to share something like that. Mick, Top Floor Tactics, my man, on Instagram.
Yes, Top Floor Tactics. I have it on Facebook. Don't go there. That's no good over there. I just got it. It's a necessary evil, I guess you would say. But it's that this fall I have a class coming out, Fire Academy to the Fire Floor, why the disconnect. Talking about some of these topics. So I'll be coming out in the fall. And also you can find me on weaponizeyourmind.com, and we're talking about more of a mental side of the job. And that'll be coming out this fall as well.
Good to know. Thank you, sir. And Nick Esposito, Truck_Tactics, right? On
right,
Instagram?
Yeah. Man, thank you. I'm just happy to be in the room. Honestly, you guys are great. My first time really hanging out with Chris, and it's been a good time. I really appreciate it. It's just a blast because I'm just a guy that I'm just a fireman having fun, and somehow I got sucked up in this, and I appreciate it. So
we're all the same, Nick. We're all the same.
But yeah, so Truck_Tactics, that's me. Listen, hit me up if you got any questions or whatever. And again, I'm just happy to be here.
And I think that's the best part. And I think that's how we sum this up, right? Is everybody in this chat group tonight, everybody in this live feed is approachable. If you get DMs or people reach out, everybody's looking to help one another. And I think that's what this is all about. So fellas, thank you.
Thank you.
For being a part of this tonight, man. I thought it was awesome. We're going to be doing more of this, and I will certainly have you guys and ask you guys to be back. I appreciate our friendships, and I appreciate what you guys are doing for the fire service. So thanks for being a part of this tonight.
Thanks, boys. Pleasure.
For everybody,
Later, boys.
There it is. For everybody watching on YouTube tonight, thank you. This was our first live stream. I hope it went well. I hope it everything went well in the sound and volume and the content. We're going to be looking to do more of this. We're looking to do a steady show once a week, I think, on streaming live on Facebook or on YouTube, excuse me. So we're excited for that. And we're going to be bringing more guests in, just like these four guys, to talk about the job and talk about the culture and what we all love about it. So thanks for taking time out tonight and joining us. For Jeremy, my man Rob over here. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you.
I love it. Rob. I need Rob. Without Rob, I got nothing. So, Rob, thank you. Appreciate it, man.
No problem, brother.
Good. Everybody take care.
Yeah.
Be safe. And enjoy your night. And that's a wrap. So, have a good night, everyone. So, hang on.
How do you end it?
I got to end it. People are still watching, right? We're still live feeding. I got to remember how to do this now. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to screw this up. I know it.
All right, so venting a peak roof. What's up?
Hang on.
Oh, no.
Why do you want to talk about a peak roof?
She walked away.
Let's see.
I gotta take a piss.
I hope he's still mic'd up.
You guys
I'm still mic'd up.
We're still live at the moment.
We're still alive, baby. We're still
I gotta figure this out. Hang on. This is the worst part of
We
it.
don't know how to disconnect.
Are you kidding?
You hear that?
It's a good stream you have going, buddy.
Thanks, pal. I have no idea what I'm doing. This is not my gig.
Get your kids,
I
man.
wasn't talking about your stream. I was talking about Mix.
Rob, where's Sebi when I need him?
Do you have to switch me over as the host so I can end this for you?
No.
Oh, this is hilarious.
No.
This is so
I
funny
can-
right now.
No, well, it's still streaming on YouTube. That's the funniest part about all this. I have to end it on YouTube first. And of course, I don't remember how to do that. I was showed today and now I don't remember.
All right, so this is interesting.
Hang on.
Is that he's got a shark chilling in the background. Top floor just has a chair. And Pinky Town has like a messed up bed, which like he's got the best backlighting possible. And then Rob got yelled at before.
Rob, I have no idea how to end this thing. I need to say.
You know what it is? Unfortunately, the hotel staff is skeleton crew, so I don't get my bed made every night, and the mints aren't on my pillow. It's unfortunate.
So are you still getting the small shower things?
Oh yeah, no, the shower's on a heated floor too. In the
Bro, I
bathroom.
need like when I go there, I need like 10 towels.
Matt, are you quarantined?
Oh yeah, quarantined. We'll talk about
Right.
that after, as soon as this YouTube thing ends. I'll explain.
Yeah, I figured. Yes, absolutely.
God, don't hang on. It's still going, dude. I can't fucking shut
Still
this
live.
God, I'm furious
I
right now.
hope I didn't miss anything.
Do we want to have?
No, that's okay. You can play it back later.
This is like the after show right now.
or something? What's the next one going to be about? Let's ask the people out there. What do you want the next topics to be? We want some responses on there, Jeremy.
Jeremy, just pull the plug out, man.
Yeah. Is that what you did? Is that how you got on this thing tonight?
This is awesome.
This is dumb. This is the worst part.
We're firemen, not techs.
Classic fireman.
Hey, remember in the beginning when we were shitting on Mickey for not getting his video up?
Yeah, you're crushing me, dude.
Yeah.
Crushing me, Jeremy.
Oh man.
I don't know why I can't call Sebi right now. It's not letting me call him.
All right, why don't you just
Is
end
that your phone a friend?
Sebi said go through the steps again.
Just send us another Zoom invite. We can talk after. No,
The problem is I don't care about Zoom. It's signing off of YouTube.
I think what Nick said's the best. Just pull the plug,
Yeah.
Close the window, man.
cut the cord.
So what's everybody's take on the peaked roofs here, guys?
Yeah.
Early and often. Sometimes twice.
Well, Nick put out this ridiculous sticker that's floating around out there. I don't support it.
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
It's not a crime,
It's
bro.
a cool
It's not a
sticker.
crime.
I love it.
Yeah.
If only I had a creative bone in my body to come up with a sticker. Go ahead. Tell them to hit you up for stickers, Nick.
Oh, I know. It's ridiculous. I gotta put my kids through college somehow.
Obviously, they're not going Ivy League.
Sab,
No, we're going to Philly.
How do
They're
I
hanging
get
out
off?
Bobby Eckert.
And I didn't mean because of knowledge. I apologize. I meant you're
Yeah. No.
not in price.
Where is it? There
I
it
did
is.
that.
Yep.
You got Nicky stickers over there. Hey, look at me. I'm Nicky stickers.
That's right.
Now you're gonna what?
Crime. Get some.
You know what? He's got to talk with like the finger to the point.
Yeah, it's bad. It's bad.
Yo, top floor, you have a dock?
What?
You have a dock?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I go to your. I'm on. Hold on.
Come
Hey,
on up.
Jeremy, mute your
Video. I go
Never
to
mind.
edit video, right?
Let it go, bro.
This
Sebi's
is
making a
awesome.
live.
This is awesome.
Right.
Cameo appearance by Semi.
And then you have to go for the live.
Live. Where's the live? Oh, there it is.
Upload live.
Right, do I click?
You'll see the little one to the right.
Chris, where are you working?
Here's the video.
Right.
We'll discuss that in a little bit.
Right. Edit. End stream. Are you sure you want to end stream?